In this lesson, we are going to look at the procedure of the lab called Explore Chemical Reactions. First of all, if we look at the first procedure where we are going to decompose hydrogen peroxide, which is in this bottle here. So this is hydrogen peroxide, and we are going to make water and oxygen gas. So the basic procedure is this. You have a flask, okay? And this flask is where the chemical reaction is going to be happening. And part of the procedure is that you have to measure about 30 milliliter of hydrogen peroxide. Now notice how I use the term about, because this is a qualitative lab, so you can have 31, 32, 33. It doesn't really matter, but make sure you read the measurement carefully, because each one of these right here is actually equal to 0.1, so you would have 30.0 if you're exactly 30, okay? So be careful, read your measurement carefully. And then we have the scale that we are going to use to measure our yeast, which consists of the catalase in yeast to be our catalyst. So the catalase is an enzyme in yeast that we are going to use to speed up the chemical reaction, which in this case is the decomposition of hydrogen peroxide. Notice how the scale is 0, but when I put the weighing dish, it changed the mass. So when you do that, you can press 0, and you just basically take the mass of the weighing dish so that you can measure the yeast separately. So let's go back to the procedure. So the decomposition of hydrogen peroxide, you again require 30 milliliter. So use this very conservatively, please, because we need to save this for another class. So here we have the hydrogen peroxide. Notice how hydrogen peroxide is stored in a black or very dark plastic container. That's because when sunlight hits, hydrogen peroxide will automatically decompose into water and oxygen. So I need about 30 milliliter. Okay, so I'm going to use a graduate cylinder, and I'm going to pour about 30 milliliter. There you go. And I read it, and I got about 28.5, okay? So that'll be good enough for me. Again, the keyword is about. And of course, I am going to carry this reaction in here. Okay? There you go. Notice how we have a very small amount of hydrogen peroxide in there. And the next steps is, of course, we need to weigh 1 gram of yeast. Okay? About 1 gram. That's a key thing. This is a qualitative lab. Okay? So we have about 1 gram of yeast. We have 0.9. Okay, let's stay there. 0.9, how about that? So the next step is that we get our yeast. Remember, we carry our reaction in here. The goal of this is to trap the oxygen gas in there, okay? So before we move on to the next step, we have to realize that now we are dealing with fire. So I have a match right there. When you use a match, make sure the area is clean, okay? And we have the candle here, so that way the flame or the fire is more controllable, because again, we are making a combustible oxygen gas that's going to produce a lot of energy in the end. So I have that right there. I burn my candle. We don't use a Bunsen burner because we are making flammable gas. The last thing we want to do is, notice how I just drop in there, and there you go. That's what the beaker with water is for. So every time you burn something, you put the stick in there, so that way there's no chance of causing a fire. And now we have a controllable fire. And the next thing on the list is we are going to add the yeast in there, okay? But before we do that, we have a paraffin right here. This is basically a wax-like plastic that you can stretch this over, so you can cover this over here, so that way the oxygen gas is not going to escape. So let's carry out this reaction, and we want to carry this reaction for a certain amount of time based on your lab procedure, but for now let's put the yeast in. Okay, there you go. Notice how the yeast start reacting already, and we're going to cover this, let it rest for a few minutes, so that way all the gas in there, or all the air is escaping. And notice how I'm going to move this candle over here a little bit, and I cover it, okay? And I'm going to shake this. So notice how I use my hand to shake this, okay? And I'm going to forward this a little bit more. So let's see what happened when I have super concentrated oxygen. keep holding, and basically I'm going to burn this, okay, and prove to you that we need oxygen to start a fire. Look, I will get rid of the flame. There you go. See how there's no more flame? And look what happened when I remove the wax.